Hello, it's Karen Burniston here with an assembly video for 3 new die sets. These are our access tabs to fit our ball dies, and you can check out all of our products at karenburniston.com. Our ball dies are some of our most popular offerings. They come in 3 sizes, the mini ball, the bitty ball, and the surprise ball. And now with the new access tabs, there's one to fit each one of those ball sizes. So you would want to purchase the one that fits the ball size that you already have. If you have multiples, you will be able to tell these apart because they are labeled with a letter cut out in the middle of each die. So B for bitty, S for surprise, M for mini. So that'll make it easy for you to discover which one of these dies fits whichever ball you're using. Rubber bands don't last forever. You know, they wear out, they break. And so prior to these access tabs, because you had like a permanent glued connection to all the sides of the ball, if those rubber bands broke and you wanted to get in there, you'd have to cut 2 sides of the ball open, replace your rubber bands, make your own tabs to replace them. Now with these access tabs, you're just basically building it from the beginning with the idea that you may have to get in there later and replace those rubber bands. The access tabs are going to be a nice option for people that like to work ahead as well. So if you've made a project for a friend, 6 months ahead of time, you could use the access tabs to go in there and unhook those rubber bands so that they're not being stretched out while you store it. And then, right before you go to mail it, just open up the ball, stretch your rubber bands, and mail it. The ball dies are most often used to make characters, and so our newest animal add-ons is number 6 here that will make these little bugs. And we also offer these 6x6 exact packs. So there's 30 sheets of heavyweight cardstock inside these exact packs, curated with the colors that you would need to match a particular animal add-ons. The access tab die is just a single die, and you can see there with those little letters in the center, it's real easy to figure out which one you have. So I'm going to make a black surprise ball. With each ball die, you've got a die that cuts half of the ball, then you've got 6 individual trapezoids and your hexagon, and everything gets cut twice. Now, if you're a power user of the ball dies, we already offer another add-ons, which are called our double-ups. So what the double-ups do is that they add a second set of those trapezoids and hexagon, and then probably one of the most used, decorator pieces within each set. So for the surprise ball here, I could use the double-ups. All those trapezoids are then connected in a single die. But importantly, it also comes with something called an inside trapezoid. So that can be used either as an extra layer, or I like them on the inside of the ball to reinforce things. However, you don't have to have the double ups. I'm just showing that that's an option that is available. We will not use it for these access tabs. I just wanted to show it. All right, so step 1 is to do my die cutting. I'm not going to do any decorating of this ball, but I do need 2 trapezoids to reinforce the inside of the ball. And you can see I can actually, even with the surprise ball, I can fit a ball half and those 2 inside trapezoids on a 6x6 sheet. So I'm going to do this die cutting and then repeat it for a second sheet. And then in my 3rd sheet, I just need my access tabs. Alliance is my favorite brand of rubber band, and we offer little baggies in a number 12 firm stretch and a number 12 soft stretch. For the biggest ball, which is a surprise ball, I tend to use 2 number 12 soft stretches. Now later on in this exact video, I'm going to end up swapping out those 2 number 12 soft stretches for 1 number 12 firm stretch. So it's a really good idea to have both sizes, and that way, depending on your individual project, the weight of your cardstock and your decorations, you can adjust the tension as needed. The most important thing about putting the balls together is that you start with 2 pieces that are aligned identically so that you haven't accidentally flipped one over. Usually it's pretty easy to tell. You can look at the side and see which side has been die cut into, but you can also just make sure everything is weeded out of your pieces and then put one piece over the other and make sure absolutely everything lines up. Every single tab, every single hole, every single triangle, the slits, the cuts, all of it. They need to be identical. And then just to make sure that I don't accidentally flip something over while I'm assembling, I'm going to take a pencil and mark on these. So I'm going to put a B on one of them for bottom and T on the other for top. I can use a pencil and erase it, but most likely I'm putting a hexagon on that later, so that pencil mark will be covered up. All right, I'm starting with the wings. The little wings on 2 sides of the ball need to be folded towards the back, okay? And then I'm going to use my very strong adhesive. So I like my LINECO neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle. And a really, really good thing to have when you're assembling the ball dies is going to be small clips. So I like quilting clips. They're small, they're inexpensive. I can get a whole bunch of them so that I can be, luxurious in how I'm clipping these. And I'm just going to clip those wings down and let them set up while I move on to the next one. So this is going to be your most efficient way to assemble the ball dies, is that you don't have to sit there and hold those wings while they set up. You can let the clips do that work for you and move on since you've got more to do. Now those wings are for strength. Those are the rubber band sides of the ball. So when you glue those wings down, you want plenty of glue underneath there. In other words, you want to shellac them down. We're not just doing a little, line of glue or a couple dots. Those are for strength. So we want those shellacked on. And that's why I'm using plenty of glue underneath the wings, and I'm clipping them so that all of that glue is going to set up for strength. I find that assembling the ball dies is a pretty relaxing process. It doesn't really take a lot of thinking. So it's something you could certainly do while, watching TV or listening to a podcast or something like that. But what I like about the clips is I can just clip those wings down and then just kind of move on. So it does make it more efficient when you've got clips. But if you didn't have clips, you just hold it until it's set up. Now I am going through the full assembly of this ball, even though I know we have, assembly videos for all the ball dies. But I'm doing that just because this is our best practices way of assembling these balls now. And I just figured I would go over it again. Over the years, we've just found better ways. Initially, I was only putting one rubber band inside the ball, so you only needed these wings to reinforce the rubber band sides. Now I like to put two rubber bands inside the ball, and so for that, I want to add some extra reinforcing inside the ball. All right, so I'm going to find the fold at the bottom of the two rubber band sides, and that's where that extra trapezoid is going to go. And once again, this is for strength. So I'm going to use plenty of glue. And where I want to start it is close to the fold at the bottom. So for this one, I'm not trying to center it. I'm trying to reinforce the area up next to that fold. And again, I can clip it down. Now, these inside trapezoids, technically, it wouldn't matter what color they were. So I went ahead and just used that extra waste space kind of on the outside of the ball dies when I was doing my 6x6 cutting. But you could go to your scrap bin and find any kind of heavier weight cardstock in any color because it's inside the ball and you're not going to see it. This is just for strength. And this is how I tend to assemble them, very assembly line. In other words, I do something to one half and then I just do it to the other half. But, the order of this doesn't really matter. I mean, you could certainly work on one half of the ball and get it completely where you want it and then move on and do the entire second one. So whatever you find, doesn't really matter the order of things. But I'm going to just repeat that now for the second ball. So I like to find the fold at the bottom so I don't cross it, but I want to come right up to it with my inside trapezoid. So for the surprise ball and this one, I'm using just, the decorator trapezoids is what I'm using inside the ball. If you have the double ups, then you have one that's just a little bit larger that fits inside the ball, but either works. And if I were making a character that required more than one ball, then I would just continue this assembly line process. So I would go on and, do the other one. And again, just clipping as I go so that as one ball's glue is setting up, then the other one is ready for the next step. All right, so removing my clips and flipping this over, I can work the sides, the fold next to the full tab. So those are the ones that hold the rubber band. So on both sides, I'm going to fold those towards the inside of the ball. And then I'm going to look at which side has the cut. Okay, so the side that has the cut, that's the side of the ball where I will not need the half tabs because I'm going to replace them with the access tabs. So it is very important that you do it on the side where the cuts are so that you have access to that rubber band. The other side of the ball, those can just be glued permanently. Those are the ones that have the half tabs. I can fold those to the inside. On the side that I'm going to remove the half tabs, I can certainly fold them so that I can easily cut on the fold line, but those two are going to get removed and I'm going to replace them instead with the access tabs. So just cutting off the half tabs on that side of the ball because those are going to be replaced with the access tabs. All right, so the access tabs die set, it cuts 6 pieces. So it's going to cut 2 tabs that have a slot up the middle and then 2 tabs that have notches. Since this is the bottom of my ball, marked with a B, I'm going to use the one that has the notches. It wouldn't matter. I just find if I'm consistent, then I always know how to open up the ball later because I know that the bottom of the ball has the one with the notches and the top of the ball has the one with the slots. All right, so I'm going to fold a mountain fold up the middle of that piece. And let me see if I can get it here where you can see that there's a little bit of a difference in those notches. The one on the left side is a little bit longer. You can see that it kind of is pretty even, and on the right side it stops short. Can you see the difference there? So I definitely want a mountain fold in that so that I'm consistent that that longer notch is on the left side. So if I put a valley fold into that piece, it would actually move the longer notch to the right, and then it would still work, but I would have to figure it out as I'm opening up the ball that I needed to reverse the motion, if that makes sense. So just be consistent. It's always a mountain fold in that notched piece so that the longer notch is on the left side and the shorter one is on the right side. And this just replaced the half tab. So you can see it's just been glued inside the ball there so that those notches are sticking out and the shorter one is on the right. All right, grabbing my other notched piece, again, mountain fold up the middle, quick check that the longer notch is on the left side, adhesive all over the tapered tab, and then that glues inside the ball on the other one where I removed the half tab. I can go end to end on that. It's actually quite easy to line up. If you are using a glue that dries clear, that's quite nice, because if the glue squishes out like mine did, you know it'll dry clear. And that's all that needs to be done on the bottom half of the ball. So now that one has the notched pieces. This one, my glue should have set up by now, so now I can start working on the slotted side. So again, I'm going to start by folding in the sides that have the rubber band slots, and then whichever side those slots are on, that's the side where the half tabs need to be removed. So I can mark those with my pencil. I can go ahead and find the folds. That's fine. It'll make it easier to cut, but I am going to remove those two half tabs. All right, and then on the other side of the ball, just finger folds, find those half tabs and the folds at the bottom. All right, so what we're going to glue onto this one is going to be the slotted piece. Now this one also gets a fold up the middle, but it is the same on both sides. So it doesn't really matter which side glues down. You know, you can't mess it up by accidentally putting a valley fold in it. There is like a little divot in the center. That is just about having a hole that's big enough to get your paper piercer in there to get the paper out of the die. So that little divot is not important to the function of the piece. It's only about being able to get paper out of the die. So it doesn't really matter. Honestly, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which side you glue down. If you want to glue down the little divot side, you know, so that you don't see it, you could certainly do that, although you're not going to see it once it's put together anyway. So really the divot doesn't matter. The divot is just about the function of the die itself, being able to get the paper out of it. It's not about the function of the piece once you've die cut it. So just folding up the middle, adding glue to one side or the other, doesn't matter, and gluing it inside the ball so that those slots are still usable. In other words, the slot needs to be above the edge of the die so that you will be able to put the other half through it. All right, so now we're moving into ball assembly that you're familiar with. And the first thing you do to connect these two ball halves together is you got to look for the rubber band side, and you've got to find the two that when you kiss connection them, everything lines up. So that means the hole, the cut, the edges, everything. Okay, so you find the two sides that you can kiss connection together where everything lines up, and then you add your strong adhesive to one of those sides. And again, I'm not sparing it because I'm trying to shellac these together, especially out next to the fold. Now from inside the ball, I can certainly just use my fingers to line up the corners, you know, looking down, making sure that the hole is lined up, that the cut is lined up, and then I just use my clips. If I was making a stacked ball character, I would move on to the other ball at this point. But since this one I'm only making one, I've just got to give it a second for that glue to set up. One thing I like to do is from the outside of the ball, I take that shelf and I kind of press it to one side, and then I kind of press it to the other side. And that just helps me make sure that the glue went all the way out to the edges there, and then I've got it really nicely shellacked together. The Access Tabs die also cuts optional shelf reinforcers. So that's the other two pieces that were cut at the same time. Just a fold up the middle. It's the same on both sides, so it wouldn't matter if that was a mountain or a valley fold. But what that shelf reinforcer will do is it will glue over the edge of your rubber band shelf to strengthen it up. Now, it's technically not needed. It's more like oopsie insurance, because if you've ever made a ball die, you know that sometimes when you're sliding your rubber band down into the hole, you didn't wait for it to click. Like maybe your slots were just kind of, or your slits were just a little off from each other, and you didn't realize you hadn't made it all the way into the hole with your rubber band, and then you let go a little too soon, and what happens is it kind of bends that shelf out. Okay, so essentially that'll only happen if you didn't get the rubber band all the way down into the hole. But what these little shelf reinforcers do is they just give you a little bit of extra insurance against that, because if you miss the hole with your rubber bands, then it's not going to bend that shelf with that extra reinforcing on it. Definitely think of those as optional. If you're really good at hitting the hole with your rubber bands, in other words, you're good at just sliding down through the slit, waiting for it to get all the way into the hole until it clicks into that hole, then you technically wouldn't need the shelf reinforcers. But, you know, they're cut at the same time. Doesn't hurt anything to add them. All right, so for the other shelf reinforcer, I'm only going to attach half of it right now because I don't have the full shelf put together. I only have half the shelf right now, if that makes sense. So I can put it on there, but I'm only going to attach it to the back. And I'm going to leave this little flap out. And then once I get my kiss connection, once this side comes over and attaches, well, then I can bring up that other side of the shelf reinforcer. And if I want to do that now, I actually can just add my adhesive all over the side and the shelf reinforcer. Okay, and then I got to bring this side up and over, lining up. Oh, sorry, got a little piece of tape there. All right, so bringing this up and over, and I'm doing this from outside the ball now, so I can look at the edges and make sure that I've got a really good even connection there. And then I can bend that shelf reinforcer over the edge, clip everything together. So typically with balls, I will often do the half tabs first. I'll work my way around the ball to the other rubber band side. But for this assembly, I'm going to do the 2 rubber band sides first. And that way I have access in there to do that shelf reinforcer and add those clips on both sides. And as I'm looking at it, I feel like I didn't get my glue all the way out to the edge there. And I do really want that rubber band side to be really, really well adhered. So again, I'm going to just count on the fact that that's clear glue, and I'll let it squish out a little bit. But I'll do that same trick where I bend the shelf one way, just take my excess glue off there, and then I take that shelf inside the ball and I bend it the other way and give it a press. Okay. All right, so there I have it. I have both sides of my ball put together, and now I can start working on my half tabs. Okay, so the half tabs can be connected. So this is usual ball assembly. What I like to do is I like to set those 2 half tabs on my finger while I add glue to both of them. So they are not connecting to each other, they are connecting to the other side of the ball. So they sit side by side, just like that. And then you can connect them and make sure that all the corners line up, you know. Brush off any excess glue. Like I said, I love that LINECO glue because it dries clear. But again, just set my 2 half tabs on my finger, add my strong glue on top of the tabs. They're going to sit side by side in the finished ball, each one attaching to the other half of the ball. So that's just usual ball assembly. If you've ever put one together, you're used to those half tabs. Okay, so I moved in the middle of the summer from Texas to Minnesota, and all of my stuff sat on a hot truck for an extra week because they couldn't find a driver, and including these soft stretch rubber bands. So I stretch these rubber bands across and into the other hole, and I do not notice that one of them immediately breaks. So those rubber bands got too hot. They're no good. Later on, I'm going to replace them and I'm going to put a firm stretch in there. But right now, I just didn't notice. I didn't notice that one of them had broken. You can see it hanging inside the ball there. All right, so carrying on. Now, remember that left side has the longer notch? What I like to do is make that notch even a little bit longer. And that's just with a single snip of my scissors, okay? So I'm going to make that notch a little bit longer. You could test it on a case-by-case basis because, you know, depending on your cardstock, you may not need to, but it doesn't hurt to do it on all of them, so I just do it. So what that allows me to do is it allows me to push that whole tab to the left to where I can easily get the right side in and then bring it back, if that makes sense. So it just makes it less tight. So on the left side, I extend the notch just a little bit. I get it in the slot. I slide it down towards the left until I can get the right side in, and then I bring it back. So once the tabs are in there, okay? So here's where I discover that, oh, this is kind of lethargic. Oh, huh. Why is that not springing up nicely? And that is when I figure out that one of my bands is already broken. But that was so perfect for this video because the whole idea is I'm going to show you how you can open this ball up and replace those rubber bands. Okay, so reversing the process, I've got to slide the tab to the left to where I can get the right side to easily pop out. okay? And then it will open up easily, okay? Now, don't try to do that against your rubber band side as I'm doing right here, because you won't understand why it doesn't work. It needs to be the side that actually has the access tabs. All right, here it is. It's opened up. I can see I've got a broken rubber band in there, and I'm going to go ahead and take them both out because even the one that's in there is too stretched out. It's just that these rubber bands are gone. They just need to be thrown away. They got too hot. They're not good anymore, and I need to replace them. But what I have here on the desk is I have some firm stretch rubber bands, and those seem to be fine. So I'm going to try one firm stretch inside this surprise ball. Typically 2 firm stretches in a surprise ball is probably going to be too tight, but a single firm stretch might do it. So I just need to go in there and make sure that it gets clicked all the way down into the hole. So that's the important thing about adding rubber bands inside the balls, is that you keep pushing until they click into that hole. So keep going until you hear that click. Okay, and the difference is night and day. Look at how nice that single firm stretch rubber band kind of snuggied up that ball to where I don't have very many gaps in it. It's got a nice spring to it. So now I can just reverse the process of putting those access tabs to, attach it again. So the left side goes in, I slide it down a little bit to the left. That'll allow me to easily get the right side in, and then I just bring it back. In other words, like make it even again on each side. Okay, and that is it. That is how you use the access tabs. This one is ready for decorating. So do make sure that you take a look at your stash and figure out which size ball you have. Maybe you have more than one. If you're interested in these access tabs, you've got one to fit the surprise ball pop-up, the bitty ball pop-up, and the mini ball pop-up. You do want the size that fits the ball that you own. The access tabs dies are available now on our website, KarenBurniston.com, as well as from a lot of your favorite local and online retailers. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can purchase these dies as well as find links to our other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.